What do you think about leads, most of the chat going to a lead versus a much more distributed round?
This is sort of a lazy answer, but the answer is that there are trade-offs. And you have to pick which trade-off works for you. There is more overhead. I knew that there would be a lot of things that we needed from our investors when we were really early, and that there was a tremendous amount of value that is untapped in all of these angels and operators. Before we had our first institutional capital, I think we had about 100 angels and operators that were investors that we were able to tap pretty consistently for the first couple of years.
Okay, sorry. I have to. I've tweeted before about, and I think you actually put it in one of your notes, which gave my ego great. Honestly, I read it and I was like, no, Sam, I knew I should have invested. Jesus Christ. Anyway, my point being, like, I think that it's great to have these names, but very, very few actually extract the value that they want or need from them. How do you think about extracting that value from them in the most efficient way when you have a lot?
Probably the easiest place to start would be what doesn't work when you bring on investors. And what doesn't work is usually the default behavior of all founders. So this is what I would say, which does not work, which is don't assume that your investors can read your mind. Don't assume that they have as much context on your business about what your business needs are as you do, because they spend maybe an hour a month thinking about your company, and you spend all day, every day thinking about your company. I would say another thing that doesn't work is passively criticizing your investors for their lack of engagement if you haven't even bothered to make an effort to engage with them. It takes real proactive effort to be able to get the value that you want to get. Yeah.
So I find that often founders don't know the value that I can provide. And what I mean by that is, like, you say you have a sales pipeline, okay, or a partnerships pipeline, maybe for you, maybe. You don't know that I went to school with the CEO of GoPro.
Totally.
Or that I am brother-in-law to the head of X.
Right.
And so how do you open share what you need to 100 people in an effective way?
I guess we'll say on what does work. This is probably the simplest one, and it is where almost everybody fails, which is the first and most important thing is you need to know what you need. If I say, how can I help? And you say, I don't know, you've already failed. You need to have a list of things that you and your team need help with, because you'd be surprised at how often people can deliver. I think that's the first one, is just you have to know what it is your needs are.
And so you have a Google sheet that you share at the bottom of an update saying this is what we need.
Yeah, in our investor update, we have an asks section of things that people on our team need or things that the company needs. And we very regularly get conversions from those, from our just sort of the broad outreach to our investors. I would say the highest leverage ones tend to be more specific. I would say a well-written request to an investor is highly targeted, which is if you're sending too much noise and not enough signal as your requests, they'll eventually just get filtered out and ignored. So knowing who may be able to connect you with somebody or who may be able to convert on a request, I would say also try to keep it very specific and also time bounded. I always try to imagine myself in the investor seat when I'm writing one of these. I try to imagine, if I was to receive this, could I respond to it in 1 minute? Or is this something where I now have to do a bunch of work to try to interpret what the request even means? And I try to also be specific, where it's interesting, the difference between saying, hey, we're hiring a designer, let me know if you know any good designers. You tend to get like a 0% conversion rate from that. But if you say, hey, I'm looking to meet more designers, can you connect me with the 2 best designers you've ever worked with? People immediately think, oh, I know these 2 people. I'll connect you with them right now. And so the more specific you can get, this ties into chunking bias, which is just a cognitive bias of how our brains work. If you can get something really concrete and easy to execute on, your conversion rate goes up a lot. I think we've had something like more than 3,000 specific investor asks that I've sent people. And I think our conversion rate is maybe 50% from that group, but pretty high.
Is that good, do you think?
There are things that some people just aren't going to be able to deliver on, and that's okay. Yes, from the exposure that I've had to other founders, that they probably send something in the range of 5 requests per year. And so something in the range of 1,500 conversions is probably a lot better than is average. So, in terms of what the hit rate is, it's maybe lower than average, but you end up getting a lot more value from it.
I find that when it comes to like sales pipeline in particular, share a Google sheet with the companies that you want to speak to, the specific person within the company, hyperlink their LinkedIn. So it's super easy for me to go, oh shit, actually, I do know 3 people with him. And then also say like, hey, put your name alongside it so that people know that you've got it and no one else does. And what you create then is this like social competition dynamic of like, oh my God, Sam's got a load of, geez, Sam is really good, huh? And then when I'm another investor, I go on that sheet and I'm like, shit, I should bring Sam into more rounds because he fucking works for his company. How do you create that accountability dynamic within value add?
Even more work you can do is you can go into each of their LinkedIns and find all of their mutual connections with anyone at this firm. And you can say, we think these 5 people would be the best contact and you're 1 degree separated from them. Could you reach out to any of them and help us get 1 step closer? And so the more work that you're willing to do for them, the higher likelihood that they will be able to deliver on it. So I think always have a clear understanding of what it is that you need as a company. I would say another is setting clear expectations early is another one that I think people miss out on, where they just take money from whoever is willing to give them money. But the reality is that not everyone is going to deliver value. If it is really an expectation of you that your investors will be engaged and respond to your emails and participate to some degree, you should set that as a clear expectation and say, this is what we expect from our investors. If that's not you, totally okay. But this is probably not the right